Exactly.
All right, here we go.
Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, John, joined as usually by my co-hosts Nick and Zach Keebler. Gentlemen, how the heck are you tonight?
I'm chilling. I just got back from work about 2 hours ago, so I bought myself a nice little bottle, enjoying the night.
Yeah, I don't know
Yes,
why we're
sir.
drinking on Tuesdays now, but
It's a
yeah,
Tuesday.
I also got home from
It's a
work a couple hours
Tuesday.
ago and chilling.
Hey,
Ready for some football.
a glass of wine a night is healthy. That's all I'm saying.
Man, you coastals drinking your wine.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Can't even find wine where I'm from. Well, yeah, man, it's gonna be a pretty quick episode. I do want to talk a little bit. I want your guys' opinions on the Jonathan Taylor news. Just that they basically granted him permission to seek a trade, which is an interesting development. I sort of thought it was going to work itself out. That was the way I was leaning. But I think there was just so much random BS with the injury rumors and those multiple camps confirming or denying these injuries. We don't know where the sources were from. And then we're just at a contract impasse, which we talked about a couple weeks back altogether. So, Nick, I'll start with you. What are you surprised at all by Taylor being able to seek that trade? And also, where do you see him potentially landing? Because we might get that news here this week.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and like initially when he requested out, I was surprised because they had just drafted, Anthony Richardson, who has a lot of hype coming out of college. People are already like putting him in the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks. Hasn't played a snap yet. And generally, when that happens, the quarterback actually turns out to be pretty cool, pretty good. So I'm expecting AR to really land on his feet in Indianapolis. So I thought that backfield would be really dynamic. Then he requested a trade. Obviously, he didn't like what was going on in Indy at all, which it's to be expected. They've been really, really intermediate, kind of going the wrong way. You got Houston who's going up. You got the Jags, who's obviously now the favorites, and Indy kind of seems like that third team, and maybe even fourth. So I mean, I'm not surprised that they allowed him to seek a trade, just because they might be able to get a lot for him. He's very young. He's like in the prime of his career as a running back. So, and as we were talking about too, like the running back market has been so obscure these in the past couple of years, and especially now. I think that I've seen that the Bears, maybe Miami, those teams are looking for running back to add to the mix. JT could be definitely that type of guy for him. So if he lands in one of those teams or anywhere else, I mean, I'm sure that Indy will get a haul, and that's kind of what they want right now. Maybe do a little bit of rebuild behind Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, they were pumping their chests out a little bit. It was like they were seeking multiple firsts for him. That's nuts. But that's the art of negotiation. So we'll see what they land on. The only reference point in recent memory is the CMC trade, which was, if you remember, it was a second, 2/3, multiple fifths. So just a haul of mid-round, day 2 and day 3 picks. Keebs, what do you see coming out of this trade as far as what Indy might get back? Where do you see him potentially going? And did this news shock you at all, or is this kind of the way you thought it might go?
So it didn't really shock me too much, because it seemed like the Colts were just like clinging to everything that they could to try to like not trade him, and then I guess it pushed over like a boiling point where they were just like, heck it, like go find a trade. But then again, like you said, I saw that report that you were talking about where they were looking for a first or the equivalent of a first, which again, I'm not saying this to like be a Giants fan, but like he's not Saquon. You don't draft running backs in the first round. And I mean, trying to find like the equivalent of that is pretty ridiculous. But like I said on the last podcast I was in, because I haven't been on here for a couple of weeks because of work, I feel like it's a big tell into how we're going to see the translation of Anthony Richardson. That's like the biggest thing to me. Like Nick said, you draft this guy out of UF that has crazy hype coming out of college, supposed to be good, and now your best player is requesting a trade when that's supposed to be like his right-hand man. So that's just how I see it. But no, it didn't really shock me at all. I knew that he had all the leverage in the situation, given how the Colts suck. But that's just how I see it.
Rough year for sure. But yeah, I mean, I saw it the same way. You liked that fit for A. Rich because it felt like something where he can come in. They can simplify the offense and really focus on that running game. He's got one of the better backs in the league behind him, who can really take a lot of the workload. The zone read stuff would have been really fun with those two. But yeah, all of a sudden it seems like he doesn't really have that safety blanket. You've got pretty middling weapons, in the passing game. So I don't know. It's not as good of a situation as it seemed like, particularly on the offensive side. And his life's going to be a little bit more difficult as a rookie. I mean, they've got Zach Moss on the roster, sure.
Bill's legend.
Yeah, they've got, if I'm doing my math right, 2 good offensive linemen. Ryan Kelly might just kind of be on his way down. Braden Smith should come back pretty strong. We'll see how Bernard Raymond looks. But, it's just not as nice of a situation as it seemed like. It seemed kind of cushy to where they could really lean into that run game like the way Jordan Love might have that to kind of lean on in his first year as a full-time starter, like Desmond Ridder will probably have to lean on in his first year as a full-time starter. So, you would have liked that situation to stay cushy for him, but that's about as good a segue as any, because we are talking AFC South this episode with our team position group grades exercise that we've been doing. So we're going to come back to this. We'll eventually round out the whole league prior to the start of the season so we can compile our bite-sized sports power rankings leading up to week 1. So we'll knock out the AFC South today, and we're going to start with those Colts. For those of you listening, jump in the comments at any time and let us know your thoughts on this team as we move through the division. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe. Helps us out a ton. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the Colts. So let's start with Anthony Richardson. So in a vacuum, we've obviously got Minshew Mania and the L Slinger backing him up. So it's a pretty decent room. I think you have a couple of fail safes if you deal with a Richardson injury or anything like that. But in a vacuum, how do you guys feel about this QB room? Nick, I'll start with you. What's your letter grade for Anthony Richardson and the boys?
Okay, yeah. So starting with Indy is an interesting one here, and especially a quarterback, because we got a rookie who now, as we just talked about, might lose his number 1 running back to another team. He's got a lot of hype coming out of UF. He was an explosive player. Hasn't played a snap, however, and you'd like to give a guy like that a C, but just because of how much electricity he could bring to the table, I'm going to give the quarterback room for the Colts a C+.
Interesting. I like that. I was right there with you. I went just a regular C. It's, I think there'll be ups and downs for Richardson. I think if they end up having to defer to a backup, it's a dead average guy in Gardner Minshew, who's not going to elevate your team, and he's probably not going to sink it all on his own anyway. So, yeah, I'm right there to C. Nick, we got a C+. Keebs, how you feeling about AR and Minshew and L Slinger to a degree?
So I like UF quarterbacks a lot. We've seen some electric ones come into the league, like Tim Tebow. Cam Newton went to UF? No.
Auburn.
No, he was Auburn.
Oh. But yeah, no, Tim Tebow, things like that. But
Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like Gardner Minshew has a nice mustache, but outside of that, like you said, he's not really gonna be like a difference maker in winning you games. But I have like high upside for Richardson, but I think I'm right with John at like a C, because he hasn't played a single snap in the NFL, so we really don't know. But
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I went through this exercise a little bit on my own pre-show. Actually, it was before the JT news dropped. I think it was just the day after our last show. I was going through my notebook. I ended up doing a few extra teams, got through the AFC South, and I had an A- for the running back room with JT in the building. So assuming he won't be, I moved that right down to a C-. I think Zach Moss can give you some viable touches. Well, they could always, sort of go in on whatever the veteran market is. And, we'll see. Yeah, exactly, Josh. That's I think how we all feel. It would have been nice to just see him have that young partner. And the thing about it too, I don't know why they were hesitant as they were on a JT extension when you've got your quarterback of the future on a rookie deal. That seems like as good a time as any to give a second contract to one of the best backs in the NFL. So that is certainly a bummer. Outside of Moss, is it still – let me double check because who else is in that room? They had a kid last year who was Rodney. Anyway, they had a couple of other backs last year that were in the mix when JT was injured. I don't think they retained any of them. So we'll see what kind of ancillary pieces they bring in. But, yeah, I mean, I'm at a C- right there. Yeah, Lee, it's been a rough go. For a couple seasons there, if you think back to the zeitgeist of like 2-3 years ago, a lot of folks were really high on Ballard as the GM and Irsay sort of as the man behind the curtain. But since then, he really hasn't been hitting on as many draft picks as they were for that spell there when they brought in Shaq Leonard. Not bringing in veterans along the margin to the degree of a like DeForest Buckner when they brought him in. And the way they stayed relevant. But it's interesting to see the move on from JT, frankly. I don't understand. There's got to be something going on behind the scenes for sure. But that's all we've got on it at this point. We might change our minds. Who else is on there? Evan Hall. Yep. So they did not retain a guy whose name I cannot remember. But none of the other backs in that room are back. Moving on to the pass catchers, wideouts, and tight ends. I mean, Jelani Woods is a highlight for me. I'm a big fan. I think MPJ will be fine. Alec Pierce will be nice. I'm really high on Josh Downs. I think he's going to be awesome. They got Nick's boy Isaiah McKenzie on that roster as well. Drafted Mallory. So, I'm at a C+ with this group. I feel like it's above average, finally, especially rounding out the depth with Downs and McKenzie, but that's about as high as I was willing to go preseason. Where are you guys at? Nick, what's your thoughts on the Colts pass catchers?
The thing about the Colts receiver room, they got my boy Isaiah McKenzie from the Bills, and he's the face of the franchise. So hopefully the Colts, have a good guy, can do a lot of things for you, and I think that he will be like in that backfield with AR a lot of times. The thing I always say about Pittman is that he's got a nice YouTube channel, but I don't really think he bolsters that wide receiver room too much. And I'm kind of sitting at I'm sitting at a C with Indianapolis here, wide receivers and tight ends. I don't believe in them right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think we'll need a step forward from Michael Pittman Jr. to really see this group as a threat, or Alec Pierce, or Josh Downs, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we just want to see it. I'm in a similar range to you. Keeves, what are your thoughts on the pass catchers in Indianapolis?
For his card market sake, I'm hoping that Alec Pierce has a good year because I have his autograph and I'm trying to sell it. But yeah, no, outside of that, it's pretty like lackluster. I know Pittman had like a good fantasy year the one year, but outside of that, like I said, he's been, like Nick said, like a YouTube wide receiver. I don't know. I think a lot of it also has to do with your quarterback and how he can sling the rock, and AR is not really known as like a thrower. So I'd say I'm gonna give them probably a C.
Gotcha. Kev, if you see this, I was the highest on your pass catchers. I'm at a C on the offensive line. It's so much, it's so much more than a sum of its parts. A lot of times it's as bad as its weakest link. It's such a cohesive unit, and when you have multiple weak links, it's really tough to recover. So we've got Braden Smith back. I talked about that at the top of the show. Quentin Nelson is back, healthy by all accounts. Ryan Kelly's still there. We've got a little Max Fries action, probably playing right guard. I think Danny Pinter is still the swing guard. And then you've got Bernard Raymond, who's probably going to be at left. You've also drafted Blake Freeland out of BYU, extremely athletic offensive lineman, who's probably going to be the swing tackle. I could see him pushing Raymond for that job, but I don't have my ear to the Indianapolis streets, so Raymond could be running away with it right now, as far as I know. But I did like Freeland's athletic acumen. But I was at a C overall with the offensive line. You've got everybody from an all-pro to a completely unproven, borderline starter across that group. So the average comes out to dead average for me. Nick, what are your thoughts on the offensive line coming into this season?
Quentin Nelson, an all-pro, and a whole bunch of garbage. It's a C- from me. When he was drafted to help Andrew Luck. And ever since he's gotten into the league, he's been great. But Andrew Luck's out of the league. And then they went through like Matt Ryan, and they went through like other guys, Carson Wentz, and now we're here with Anthony Richardson, and he's still the only guy. So when you draft an offensive lineman, you want him to flourish into being exactly what Quentin Nelson is. But then if you can get kind of like B+, B- to B tier guys around the A, then you have an offensive line. But it's just too many B+, C- type guys that even if, somebody might categorize them as a C+ because of Quentin Nelson being there, I think that defenses can exploit the Indianapolis offensive line so well just because there's only one guy that you really have to focus on. So I'm going to give it a C-. I'm a little harsh on them just because they have not been able to help the offensive line as much as they needed to help these quarterbacks.
Yeah, the floor is low for this group. Keebs, how you feeling?
I'm right there with Nick. I'm at a C-.
C-. Kev, let the record show I am the highest on your offensive line.
Because it's just like Nick said, you have Nelson and then you have like me. Like you're not really throwing that much out there. Like I don't know. You said, you saw Matt Ryan get killed. You saw just anyone that they tried to sling the rock just not have success, and that's because of everyone not named Nelson. So
Philly ribs, yeah, that was a fun experiment. Before we move off of the offense, great question from Peter. How about Justin Herbert being helped by Taylor? There was a little bit of Austin Eckler kerfuffle in the dead of the offseason. So, I mean, there's a chance he could be on the move, I suppose. But I mean, even that said, you could really usher, if they're able to make that work cap wise, and maybe it even is a rental, maybe it's not an immediate extension. I don't think that's necessarily a guarantee. It might not be like a Bradley Chubb situation with that immediate extension upon being traded to Miami. It might be, hey, well, we'll grab you for this year and talk about an extension, and then you'll have some flexibility this offseason with Eckler and Taylor. You could sort of usher Eckler into a third down back role, more of a catcher. You could go to some 21 personnel, have Jonathan Taylor be your early down back and your goal line guy, as well as Austin Eckler does to keep his legs churning. I think that could be pretty interesting, to be honest, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if the Chargers want to shell out as much as other teams.
I was
are
just
willing
going to say, yeah, I think they'll be outbid by a Miami, maybe a more desperate team at the running back spot, but because Miami just watched both or two of their division rivals get upgrades at running back that, per sources, they had their eyes on as well. So I think they may get outbid by a more desperate team, but that would be an intriguing fit nonetheless. Interior defensive line, I think, is the strongest group for this team. You've got DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, which is an excellent combo. Grover Stewart, a true nose tackle. DeForest Buckner, a true three tech with some of the craziest length on a human being who's also that strong. He's just ridiculous looking guy. And he plays the same way. If those two stay healthy, this is one of the better defensive tackle duos in the league. They're an even front, so both these guys on the field next to each other more often than not, and very rarely a third big guy up front with the two edge, and they'll try to get pressure with four. I think if those guys stay healthy, they could contribute big time to that. So I'm at an A for this group with Buckner and Stewart. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, no, I mean, DeForest Buckner, freak of nature, and like he just, when you see him on the field, you kind of can't take your eyes off him. He does things that most, you kind of said it, like most guys in the world don't really do the things that he's able to do, and when you're able to combine that with other dudes that have similar strengths, I think that's so important. I think that when you can, as I said, like when you can combine a star talent with guys that have similar talents, but they're not as, explosive it's or they don't have that veterans, leadership, but they have like those. That's what the Colts have here on the D line. And then, it's backed by, Buckner. So you got a all-pro type caliber player there. You've got guys that have a really good supporting cast. I'm gonna give them an A-. It's just really strong grade. Not a great team right now, but that is 100% their best quality.
Yeah, I feel like DeForest Buckner brings that up quite a bit. Unlike Nelson, he's playing with guys that you can actually recognize their name. And like make a strong case. I mean, the Colts D line is what arguably kept them in games last year when there were games to be kept in. So for that, I'm gonna even give them an A just because of the power that they can bring to try to win you games, essentially.
Yeah, he's a good.
Yeah, right there. Justin Herbert checking in. What's up, man? Thanks for tuning back in. Let us know what you think of our buddy Kevin's Colts, as that's who we're talking about right now. Now onto the edge group for this team. Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Dayo Yingbo, a decent collection of guys. Ultimately, though, after going through as many of these teams as I did, seeing some other edge groups, figuring out how I want to separate those, I ended up at a C- with this group. The loss of Yannick Ngakoue is going to hurt a little bit. You're replacing him with Samson Ebukam, however you want to say it. I've heard both just as frequently.
I've heard both too.
Yeah, I know. I never know which. I just pick one every
I
time I
like
see it.
Educam.
Yeah, me too. Ebukum, yeah. But anyway, he'll be fine. I mean, I think he's going to be decent in with higher snap count, but we also haven't seen him, get the majority of snaps like he likely will with this group. We saw some improvement from Kwity Paye. I think he's one of the better run stopping edges in the league, but the pass rush should be pretty average. I'm at a C- with this group. Keebs, what do you think about the edge group here?
Yeah. If we're ranking them out of 32, I'm putting them bottom 5. I'm not very high on them, especially because I'm not as like for me with ranking groups, if I'm familiar with the names, usually they're better, but unless they're notoriously not good. But yeah, I think that I would slide them right in around like a D plus C minus because they don't really they can get to the quarterback. It just takes so many possessions that it's not really making any impact whatsoever. Like you'll be lucky to touch the quarterback I don't know, a couple times a game. Even then you're not sacking him, so it's like
Yeah, I think they'll rely on a lot of interior pressure, and for these guys to just take great pass rush lanes will be what they have to do off the edge. But again, I like some of those players. It's just there's a lot better groups in the league, quite frankly. Nick, what's your letter grade here?
Yeah, no, you guys are saying it completely correctly. Like if you look at individual players over teams, maybe you can give this, maybe a C plus to a B minus. But then you look at how strong other, teams are around the league that have edge groups, and when you're looking at a team like that has like a B, and then you look at here and you're like, no, that's not even close.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
yeah, right. It's just not. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm gonna look at a C minus as well. I think you guys are correct. I do like Samson Ebukam. Like he's a good tackler. He's a good player. But I mean, he kind of. I think he was a Ram. If I'm not like, he might have been a Ram back in the day. Like, yeah, he was. I think like 2018, 2019 he was a Ram. That was kind of his heyday. He's kind of over the hill now. Kwity Paye is coming up. I like him a lot, but no, we're not gonna give him anything over a C. Like I'll definitely slide with you guys at C minus.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. The linebackers is the group I like, especially if we see Shaq Leonard bounce back from the back injury. Yeah, I think this is on the edge group for the Colts there. But I like these linebackers. Sorry, I've got a fire truck going by. I like EJ Speed. He played at a really high level in Shaq Leonard's absence. I do like outside of EJ Speed, there's Shaq Leonard, and what the heck is that other guy's name?
You got
That's gonna
Shaq
bug me.
Leonard, DJ
Zaire
Speed.
Franklin.
You got
Zaire
Zaire
Franklin.
Friend.
Holy crap! I almost forgot Zaire Franklin. But I like that group. I like those young guys a lot. Shaq Leonard, a podcaster I really respect, Joe Marino, Dolphins guy, or excuse me, Bills guy. Yeah, he's the Bills guy. Him and Kyle Krabs do a podcast on Lockdown. But that was his sneak pick for Defensive Player of the Year was Shaq Leonard, which I thought was interesting with those injury concerns. But I'm at a B with this group. It could look better by the end of the year if we have a healthy Shaq Leonard, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I want to shout out the Colts for letting us get Bobby Okereke. When it comes to linebacker, reports say he's looked a little slow, but I think it's just coming back from injury and he'll boost it up. But that was a big loss for them. The only linebacker I can name for the Colts is Shaq Leonard because he's an animal. If he's healthy, like you said, it raises the level of their linebacker group significantly. But I'm right now putting them around like a C plus, B minus.
Mm. Yeah, no, I gotta lean towards John on this one. With I think that BB plus is the right move here, just because of EJ Speed becoming. He's actually a really really solid player. Shaq Leonard has the capability of being that DPOY type talent. He already has the talent. He has the capability of being that type of player. And then you guys got obviously Zaire Franklin. Then EJ Speed, as I said, and Sengun Olubi as well, backing
Oh yeah,
up
don't they
Shaq
also
Leonard.
have
I don't hate that either.
Jojo Doman?
I'm-
Jojo Doman? Doman?
exactly. They have JoJo as well, JoJo
Big Ten
Doman.
kid. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna lean actually towards a BB plus for Indianapolis here. Shout out for getting the Giants Okereke, but I think that they're gonna do pretty fine without him.
Yeah, it's a decent group. It's one of the stronger. They're stronger up front for sure. And then once we get to the secondary, I'm at a D plus on this secondary. It's really, really underwhelming. You let Stephon Gilmore walk, who was still pretty good last year. You're looking at Julius Brents probably starting on one boundary. Kenny Moore back in the slot, of course. Something called a Dallas Flowers is going to be on the opposite boundary. Darius Rush out of South Carolina they took, who I like. There's a chance he wins that job. Julian Blackman at safety. They've got Ronnie Harrison, who might play some strong. Rodney McLeod, if I'm not mistaken. Or not McLeod, Rodney Thomas. So, it's a smattering of fine players, really, really unproven at cornerback. So it's tough for me to trust him there. And then no real high-level impact players at safety either. So I was at a D plus with this secondary. There were a couple secondaries that I felt seemed pretty average on paper, and when I juxtaposed the two, this group seems much worse than what I considered average. So I'm at a D plus. I do like some of the young guys, but we got to see it.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you think?
So I'm gonna go ahead and speak for Zach right now. I'm gonna say me and Keeb only know Kenny Moore. It's a D plus. When we're looking at these guys, we look at Kenny Moore, and as Keeb says a million times, it's a household name. Are the other guys? Absolutely not. We need to see it from them just a little bit. So until they do that, until these unproven commodities out of college do that for us, we're gonna go D plus. I think Keeb can agree with that.
Yeah, so I feel like this isn't a grade that I've seen us give out yet, but I'm just gonna go straight up F. Like,
they're so young though.
It's terrible.
Love it. Just F.
Like,
yeah, it's not good.
I'm not even gonna elaborate on it because, like Nick said, we know one guy in the secondary, but it's just terrible.
It's it's not good. I'm with you there. It is not good. Let us know in the chat how many Colts secondary players you can name off the top of your head.
You ready? Here's my
one.
That's the end.
Okay. So let's move over to Tennessee, the team of another good friend of ours, James Schmeitz, who I know for a fact is wholly engrossed in the preview of Ahsoka. He's not going to be in the chat. Here we go. 0. I didn't even give the caveat of outside of Kenny Moore, and they're just like, no, I don't know. So it's not a great group. You guys get it.
Like I said, this is the list of people I know. All right, that's the end.
Ryan Tannehill and the fellas. I've got a C plus. For a little context, I had Jared Goff at a B minus. I had Kirk Cousins at a B. When I did Joe Burrow, I had Joe Burrow at an A. So that's just kind of how I feel those guys kind of stack up against each other. I wanted a slight tier break between Goff and Tannehill. And then there's a few others who I had in that range. But I'm a C+ for Tannehill and the fellas. Do you guys feel any differently?
I'm actually putting him closer to a B-. I like Tannehill. I know he's starting to regress a little bit, but he just got a number 1 wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to feed him a lot of looks. And I feel like my fantasy football draft just started. Sorry, guys, if you heard that in the background. But
it's pertinent.
I'm high on Malik Willis. I know he didn't show that much last year, but I feel like he's definitely someone to look out for in case of Tannehill going down. I don't like Will Levis. He puts mayonnaise in his coffee.
Lifetime supply. Did you guys see that deal?
I saw the deal. By the way, Will Levis, it's an A+ for me. He just signed a lifetime contract with a Mayo company, which I use religiously. It's an A+ on my scale. I think that's fantastic.
He's got all the intangibles Nick wants.
I just drafted Christian McCaffrey over Jamar Chase, so wish me luck on that one.
Clearly his mind is in the right spot right now.
That might be a panic pick. Will Levis A+. Yeah, so I think we're in a similar range though. Keeb sounded like you were a little bit higher on the group as a whole. Thanks to Willis, maybe B-. I'm at a C+. Nick, what was your letter grade there?
Well, it says A+ on the bottom, but I'm actually going to go with a B-. I like Ryan Tannehill a lot just because he's actually he's a bit of a trailblazer. You know, he started with Miami and it kind of didn't work, and I like the way that he was able to transition over to Tennessee and really, get some playoff experience, win some games. Obviously he's actually been on the shorter end of the stick a couple of times in these playoff games, but especially in that when they were the number 1 seed and they lost to Cincinnati in the first round, that was tough because I thought they'd win that game. But I think that he does, finish the season as the starter this year. A lot of people probably think that Will Levis or Malik Willis will take over. But no, I think that when A.J. Brown left, that was really tough on him. That's so hard to just lose a number 1 receiver like that. To get one right back is actually pretty cool for him. So I think that he will have a good year. They'll win like 9 to 11 games, and I think they'll be back in the playoff mix.
Yeah, I think they'll be solid. I tweeted to watch out for them. Tannehill with like a Henry and a Hopkins, and if we see anything out of Treylon Burks, had a big scare of an injury, but it sounds like he'll be all right. It was an LCL sprain, I think it ended up being.
It's tough for a young kid like that.
Yeah, so hopefully he comes back strong. Kyle Phillips is fine in the slot, and I think with what he'll have around him, he should have a decent year. Actually was a wide receiver until his junior year in college, so props to him for adapting to the game as well as he had. I think we'll see another good year or two from Tannehill. I'm at a B+ on the running back room, of course, bolstered by Derrick Henry. Hassan Haskins backs him up. A couple other guys in the mix, but for the most part, it's King Henry holding up that B+. And not great backups behind him to fill that out. So B+ for me with Derrick Henry. You guys any higher on that group as a whole?
I mean, yeah, just with the magnitude of a guy like Derrick Henry, with how dominant he's been, I feel like it can't be lower than an A-. I feel like I'm gonna go A on this one, just because of how good we've seen Derrick Henry with a good O-line, and things like that. So that's just where I'm at. I think Hassan Haskins is good if, let's say, Henry goes down. Also, this guy keeps drafting the player I want 1 pick before me, and it's really pissing me off. This happened 3 rounds in a row. But yeah, I'm at an A for the Titans running back room.
Interesting. How about you, Nick?
Yeah. I would go more like a B plus. Obviously Keeps is going with an A for King Henry here, but yeah, I don't know. If we're counting Malik Willis as one of the runners, like maybe I give him an A minus, but I don't think we can do that. So if it's just King Henry and nothing else, it's kind of like the Quentin Nelson situation, except it's running back, so it's a little different. So we're still giving him a B plus because it's one of the best in the league, but he might actually be on the I can't say he's on the downward trajectory. I think that he's still in the league, but I can't see it being an A if there's so. And it's another thing with like position groups. There's other teams in the league that have such more solid, B plus A minus guys. We got one A plus and a bunch of C's. Like I'm not going to give you an A for that. So we'll definitely go B plus for this one though.
Gotcha. I'm at a C plus on these pass catchers. Buoyed for the most part by DeAndre Hopkins and Chig Okonkwo. I think Traylon Burks will be fine. We talked about Kyle Phillips a little bit. Racy McGrath, Westbrook Akine. Not a great group outside of that, so I can't even – well, I know they drafted Josh Wiley, but I can't even think of another tight end on the team. So it's C plus for me. I think we could see a little bit of regression from DeAndre Hopkins, but I do love that addition. It was probably a C minus or even a D plus without it for me. But he, Chig Okonkwo, if they stay in some heavier personnel, I think they'll have some success.
Yeah. I think that would. It's funny because we were talking about without D Hop, we were shit talking Tennessee. We really were. Like James was really upset he'd come on here. We didn't know what to say. The Jags seemed to be like the easy favorites, and the Texans were even like jumping them. And then they get D Hop, and it kind of changed everything. We were like, oh wait, because now they could be, as I just said, a 9-11 team. I really do think that D-Hop is the difference maker because without him, I would have put him around 6 to 8 wins. The receiver room actually has a lot of potential with D-Hop, and he's a smart guy at this point in his career. He's not going to go somewhere where he doesn't feel like he has an opportunity with the other receivers. So I'm actually going to give him a B for this right now. We haven't seen him play with the new system, but right now it's a B. It could definitely go up.
Yeah, I'm kind of rocking like a B minus, like around that range. I feel like with losing AJ Brown and seeing how well he's prospered in Philadelphia, bringing in a guy like D-Hop really helps you in a way because with that, like now you have your X factor in the passing game. Mm-hmm. So like I said, he brings him up a bit. The guys behind him aren't like scrubs. You know what I'm saying? Like they can hold their own. So yeah, I'm gonna sit around like a B minus to maybe even a B. But
yeah, absolutely. Traylon Burks coming off the injury. I'm very excited to see what he can do. But yeah, I think that B minus to B plus range is definitely where we are.
Gotcha. O-line, I'm at a D plus for this group. Did not like them letting Nate Davis walk. Replaced him with Daniel Brunskill from San Francisco at right guard. That's fine. Right tackle seems really up in the air. I don't know if you're going to see Jalen Duncan or Dylan Radens potentially push for that spot. Andre Dillard came over from Philly after doing that swing tackle, losing his job to Jordan Mailata. And then you're going to have Peter Skoronski, it sounds like, starting on left guard. Aaron Brewer is going to be your center, most likely. It's just not a great group. Not a ton of, super recognizable names, unless you're a real sicko. But it's not a great group. There's a lot of young talent on there, so we could see some improvement and maybe something uninspected. But D plus is about as high as I was willing to go for this group. It would probably be lower if I wasn't so high on Vrabel's ability to motivate guys. and put them in positions to succeed around this offense. So D+ for me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm probably going D+ too. Their quarterback was just getting torched the entire year this year, and it's not like for a traditional running back, like, oh, Derrick Henry's doing so good because his O-line's good. His O-line's crap. Derrick Henry's just a tank.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I can't really go higher than a D+ on that.
Yeah. I'm actually going to give it a C-, and it's solely based off of Vrabel's ability. It's not the players. It's not. It's really not. But yeah, his ability could catapult them up to a C- in my opinion. And usually when a team is winning, and I'm going to predict they're going to win 9 to 11 games, and if so, based off of that, if they're going to win 9, 11 games, somewhere along the way, you figure out the O-line. You just kind of do a little bit, maybe not to the tune of having a B+, B, A-, O-line, one of the better ones, but just kind of C-, C, and that kind of works out, especially when you have skill guys like D-Hop and Henry and potentially Burks. And so, and I'm excited to Skoronski as well. He was very highly touted out of college this year, so I'm gonna give him a C-. Vrabel can do a lot of magic with that unit. Deep's probably on talent, but just because of the coaching, I'm gonna give him a C-. Bump him up a little bit there.
You got it. Interior defensive line. I'm really looking Jeffrey Simmons, Teair Tart, and Danico Autry. Autry, by the way, potentially the most underrated player in the NFL. Not named Kirk Cousins. Just kidding. He is a little underrated. But Danico Autry has been phenomenal rushing from the interior, from the 4-eye on in that odd front that they deploy. And Simmons, obviously, is a game wrecker. Teair Tart, solid nose tackle. Gave my dearest Garrett Bradbury the business in joint practices. So that group is going to be really disruptive. I'm at an A- for their interior defensive line. What do you guys got?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. I'm actually giving him an A. Like, Jeffrey Simmons, Autry, my God. Like, this is – if we're talking interior D-lines, I mean, we might not get much better, especially with the potential of Autry, as you're saying. Like, he might be one of the most underrated. Underrated means fantastic. Like, he's going to become rated. He's going to become maybe even very, very highly rated, So if people are sleeping on him right now, they won't be by week 6, and then we'll have a really, really strong D-line in our hands at Tennessee. So I'm going to give him that.
I love it. The edge group. So Harold Landry will be back. They brought over Arden Key from Jacksonville, who was pretty solid in relatively limited snaps. So we'll see how that group goes. I came out to a C. We've seen Harold Landry perform at a near Pro Bowl level. And I think we could see some growth from Arden Key for sure, but that's about as high as I was willing to go, just because it's the real high end talent isn't quite there, and the depth isn't really either. Rashad Weaver is in that group as well, but that's about it. Keith, where you at on this group?
Sorry, I'm distracted with this fantasy draft. Which group are we talking about?
We're talking about the outside of defensive line for Tennessee. I kind of agree with John. I'm actually also going to go with around a C+. I just think that they have a lot of room. They have a lot of room to improve here, and the thing about it is that the interior is so strong with Simmons and Autry that the exterior, if you want to call it that, the edge rushers, they might not be as strong and as talented, but they do have the ability to get there just because of that kind of like a safety blanket of having such a strong interior. So if they don't get home, at least you have that insurance, I guess.
And they'll make it easier on the guys on the edge. I think you're right.
Yeah, that'll always make it easier. It's kind of like that Von Miller thing. with Aaron Donald, in LA.
Exactly.
If one of them doesn't get home, at least the other one has that insurance of getting there. So if Autry and Simmons are doing their thing day in, day out, snap in and snap out, at least the edge guys, even if they're not as talented as those guys, they still have that ability to get home. I think that a C+ is a little unfair because on field it'll look better than that.
Yeah, I hear you. Off-ball linebackers is interesting. I like Aziz Al-Shair from San Fran.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think it's
Definitely
Jack Gibbons. That sounds right.
Heard the name. Yeah, I've heard the name.
It's Chance Campbell, maybe.
I haven't heard the name.
That's all I got. Ooh, Monty Rice.
Sounds like a
There's a chance those guys aren't even still on the team. I think they are, but it's not a good group.
No.
If anybody's got depth charts to pull up, be my guest, because I might be forgetting somebody relevant, but I don't think I am. I'm at a D for this group here.
I'm right there with you.
Rough
I mean, in this one, there's really no reason for me to even say D+. Like I've been trying to help them out, but in this case, I like their interior D-line, and I like that when we're gonna get to the secondary, I like some of their secondary pieces as well. But the middle of the field is tough to look at here. We're kind of pulling names out of a hat we never heard of. Look at depth charts, don't know who that is. It's gonna be a D- from me. I really don't like this group at all right now. A bunch of nobodies. They need some kind of help because they don't have it right now.
Yes, it's #bad. Unfortunately, their secondary though I really like. Kevin Byard is a top 5 safety. You've got Sean Murphy Bunting, which was a great pickup. He can play inside, he can play outside. You got Roger McCreary, who has some inside-outside flexibility. Elijah Molden's still on that roster. Christian Fulton. It's a pretty solid group. And of course, Byard is flanked by Amani Hooker. And that's a pretty good safety duo. Overall, I'm at a B+ on the secondary. Nick, where do you stand?
For the secondary, yeah. I mean, I've loved Byard over the last couple of years. He just keeps on trucking. He keeps on doing that thing for Tennessee. He kind of reminds me of Jordan Poyer in Buffalo. Both guys are a little underrated, and they're both doing a great job at safety for their respective AFC teams. Outside of that, it's been a little bleak, but I still love that he has that ability to make the other guys better. He's got that. So I'm going to give him a B. I think that a B for the secondary, an A for the interior D-line. That results in usually a good defensive unit. The linebackers, obviously, I'm not very high on, but other than those guys in the middle of the field, I really like this defensive unit.
Yeah, no.
What do you think about the Tennessee secondary?
I like the Tennessee secondary a lot. I could even see him being as high as an A-.
Wow.
You have guys like Byers that you can go to, and they're just like an overall very solid secondary on paper, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So I actually have them, and Nick, I know you've got to work early in the morning. I actually do myself. So what I can do, I preface this pre-show. You guys are more than welcome to join me on these, but what I'm going to do in between now and next Tuesday is a pre-recorded episode of Necessary Roughness to just catch us up on some of these team grades, sort of round out this division, and maybe even knock out one of the other divisions. So next Tuesday we can really hammer the AFC East, and Nick can pontificate about his Buffalo Bills. The following week we'll have Keebler talking NFC East and his G-Men. So what I'm going to try to do is
Across
just
the
kind
board.
of in between. So I have no problem doing that. Nick, if you want to jet, we can wrap up show now at a natural stopping point. And then maybe I can just grab you guys' letter grades in the Discord on Houston and Jacksonville, if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, sounds good. In the meantime, where else can the people find you, Nick? Go ahead.
Instagram, Buffalo Times. Just keep on trucking, man, since 2018. Look, it's right underneath my name right there. Season's coming up. Usually get a lot of new followees, at the beginning of the year. It's exciting times. So, yeah, Bills, NFL, doesn't matter. I'm there.
Bills, NFL. Keeb, how about you?
So if anyone's into basketball, you can take a look right there.
Other side.
I'm about to revamp my Knicks Stop page, and then I'm thinking about potentially making a Giants page to go along with it. So I'm getting much more into NFL this year. So gonna be on the lookout for that for sure. Sweet. And that I don't even have any ideas for a name for that yet, but probably just best team in the NFL fan page. That's what I'm going to go with.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we are going to keep trying to get Nick to hop on the team-specific podcast train. Might have him doing some Giants content on Bite Size Sports, pre-recorded podcast style, where you can find the video posted to YouTube just like these are, and the audio pulled to Spotify or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. In the meantime, you can catch me on generally Thursday nights on Minnesota Sports Talk on YouTube, part of Purple and Scold Media, as well as scattered throughout the rest of the Bite Size Sports Network. I'll be starting Bite Size Vikes here very shortly with a season preview episode. And you'll also be able to catch my vlog with the rest of Purple and Scold Media from the week 1 home opener. A couple of shows from now, it's closer than it seems like. And in the meantime, you can also catch myself, Kev, and James over on our daughter channel, maybe you could call it, Dweeb, talking stuff even nerdier than the intricacies of an NFL 53-man roster in Star Wars content over on the Dweeb Network on YouTube as well. Exactly. We might post that to the main where you can see it. You can also join our Discord. The link will be in the description. Jump in there. We have a ton of public channels where we talk everything sports and really anything else. Jump in there. Get at us. We'd love to connect with you guys, the viewers. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Special shout out to Lee, who's posted right here. He rarely misses a show and always has something interesting to say. For the rest of the week on the Bite Size Sports Network, you'll be able to catch another damn fantasy podcast. You'll see an episode of Biting Early on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, an episode of The Bounce on Thursday night right here on Bite Size Sports, talking all things hoops with our dear Kevin James. Well, thanks again, guys. Again, if you haven't on your way out, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn the bell notifications on so you never miss a live stream just like this. We're doing about 5 of these a night on the network, and we cannot wait for the NFL season and the NBA season that will follow it. So thanks to my co-hosts for joining me, guys. Take it easy. Nick, get some rest. Thanks, all viewers. We will see you right back here next week. And like I said, we'll have some filler content coming out sometime between now and then to round out this AFC South. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, boys.